We have multiple Minnesota Vikings updates to bring you today, as many new reports are coming out with a very interesting target still remaining in free agent for the Minnesota Vikings. We're going to be breaking that down, as well as going over one of the best updates we've had in a long time from Kevin O'Connell about this Minnesota Vikings team that are going to have Vikings fans absolutely buzzing. We're going to be breaking it all down here in this video. Before we do jump into all the news that we have here today, though, ladies and gentlemen, be sure to hit the sub button if you haven't already. We're on the road to 2K, and we're just about halfway there, but we're going to have daily Vikings videos for you coming throughout the season, as well as leading up to the season. We still have a lot of stuff coming, and you're not going to want to miss it. I'll have it all for you here as it happens. But let's get straight into this here, and I want to first pull up what we have on Keenan Allen. A very interesting report is linking him to the Minnesota Vikings via free agency, as he still does remain a free agent. And I want to pull up firstly, Allen would be another veteran who can support McCarthy and give the Vikings arguably the best trio of receivers for any team in the league. For a franchise that finished 14-3 last year, taking a next step into the Super Bowl contender is a big risk, and Allen could be a smart way towards making that a reality. And when you're coming into being, asked as a Super Bowl contender, asked as, one of the top teams in the NFL, you could have the best roster by a landslide, and that still don't mean you are going to win the Super Bowl. And you need everybody firing. That's one thing. We know injuries are a prominent issue across the NFL over the past few seasons, and the Vikings really should not be willing to take any risks. And just assuming that Jalen Nailor, Ty Felton, and Rondale Moore would be suffice for a wide receiver 3 for the entire season, because things happen, and we know that we don't want that. Of course, one thing in note being Jordan Addison. What's going to happen with him, his suspension? Having as many wide receivers as possible is the best option for this Minnesota Vikings team. And I want to as well pull up what we have, a little quote here coming out from the Pro Football Network about Keenan Allen. So at 33 years old, Allen isn't the athlete he once was. Let's keep that in mind. He wasn't ever an elite speedster at his peak. However, he's still an incredibly smart slot receiver, knows how to work himself open, and there's still plenty of value he can bring as a number 3 receiver for a playoff contender, assuming he doesn't just jump back in with the Chargers. Now, the one thing of note that I want to pull up here and kind of discuss is the slot receiver. When you're looking at where the Vikings currently stand in the receiver room, we have a lot of guys that are a lot of speedsters, very good at bringing the ball in, and we don't really have anybody that is, the best slot receiver in the league right now. Of course, everybody that we have can play that role, certainly, but Keenan Allen has having that role for, however many seasons he's been in the NFL. I don't know off the top of my head, but he's been that role for the Chargers, for the Bears, and he's done very, very well at that role. So having someone who's done that position, worked that role for many, many years into that position, rather than kind of putting someone there because, they're probably the better option for it while you have better players to go deep down the field, it really assumes well for the Minnesota Vikings here with Keenan Allen as a wide receiver 3. Now, of course, this wide receiver room is good. There's no doubt about that. Jalen Nailor is a very interesting one as well, because he's going to be here this season, depending on what happens throughout and after. There are many reports indicating that he will be going in free agency next year due to how much he's going to be commanding, and the Vikings not really wanting to pay that. And questions are arising as well, of course. Keenan Allen's still a good player. There's no doubt about that. And how much money will he be wanting? Is it going to be worth what the Vikings have to pay to bring him in? And when you have guys like Ty Felton and Rondale Moore, who I think the potential is so high for, is it worth making that risk to bring them in and to kind of leave the cap open for a veteran who you may sit some rookies for down the road? But if you want to be a Super Bowl team, that's what you're going to need. You're going to need a guy like Keenan Allen, who at 33 years old is the perfect wide receiver 3 for this Minnesota Vikings team. And, whether or not the signing happens is still yet to be there. It's up in the air. I would be a fan of it, of course, but I still do think, without a doubt, that Jalen Nailor, Rondale Moore, and Ty Felton could fill that role perfectly well, also. But going down to later in the season, the playoffs, that's where you're lacking a guy like Keenan Allen compared to those guys, a player who has been around the NFL for so long and understands the game. Now, going on as well, looking at Keenan Allen's market value, it's only at $11.1 million, and that is still quite a bit compared to, everybody else on this team on a rookie deal, on some younger deals, and kind of going into where Keenan Allen would stand, going from what his last market value was at $25 million, or around $20 million, coming down now to an $11.1. It is a very, very big saving coming in here, and it is, once again, because of his age, because of the role that he's going to be taking, and also, no teams are really looking for a guy like Keenan Allen to be that wide receiver 1 right now. So given the Vikings' opportunity, it really seems to be one that I think should be taking the gamble on. And of course, moves can be made if a deal needs to be done. We could trade him at the deadline. There's things like that can also be made, but I think there would be no need for that at all. Keenan Allen would be a great wide receiver 3 for this Minnesota Vikings team, and I want to know what you guys think as well on this topic, because it's one that I think a lot of people are going to be talking about for the next little bit, especially going into a very important season for J.J. McCarthy, who in my last video, so be sure to go check that out, has been looking phenomenal so far, and we may not need to see the extra receiver in the room there. So let me know what you think about that, but we do need to move on as well to a very positive update from Kevin O'Connell about this Vikings team, and I want to pull up this right away. Get right into it from Kevin O'Connell. Christian Darrisaw and Rondale Moore and Will Fries all not going on the PUP list to start the season. Those guys have all, I want to highlight the work they've put in this summer to put themselves in a position to be out on the grass practicing, all in different capacities. O'Connell said, "We are very pleased with where the guys are and their timelines of fully returning to daily participation. We have great plans on the calendar for those guys and cannot wait to see that come to fruition. Just want to highlight once again the work that these guys put in to get ready for this season." And of course, we've been waiting on these guys, kind of the update from everything, what's going on, where are we going to see everybody start the season, and it is a very exciting thing to see nobody on the PUP list to start the year. Of course, this is very important as well for multiple reasons, because we know that this offensive line was built for J.J. McCarthy. Not just that, but it was built for a guy in Aaron Jones, a guy in Jordan Mason. The names on this team that will benefit by this offensive line are endless. And this is kind of, I'm not want to say make or break for this team, but this is really what could be a make or break for a Super Bowl for this team. So seeing Darrisaw, seeing Will Fries in here immediately, going to be here healthy, is incredibly important for this team. Of course, when you're looking at it, you have Blake Randall there, who was a starter for a little bit last year, has been able to be, a starter for limited games, not a full season, but it would be one thing if one guy was out, that would be kind of feasible, but if both were on the PUP list to start, would not have been a good sign. But the fact that, none of them are here, the offensive line is healthy to start off with. You have Donovan Jackson coming in right away, Ryan Kelly, the veteran at center, Will Fries, the newest addition as well, along with Brian O'Neill and Christian Darrisaw staying healthy. This is, exactly what the Vikings need to start the season, of course. It would be a pretty tough situation to see this team start out slow. That would be something that, I wouldn't necessarily not expect, especially with J.J. McCarthy, rookie guy getting in here, but this offensive line gives the Vikings the best opportunity to come out here and make things happen, especially earlier on. So it's a very good thing, but we wanted to pull this up again, but I just skipped over a moment ago. O'Connell credited left tackle Christian Darrisaw and right guard Will Fries, and also receiver Rondale Moore for working hard to get themselves physically prepared to practice. Even though, now this is what I want you guys to take a note of, they won't necessarily be practicing at 100% from day one. So, we're expecting here, we're going to see them in here, and they're not going to be practicing just yet at a full pace, which is something I think the Vikings are hoping is going to be the case. They want to make sure that they're not rushing these guys back. They want to make sure for game one of the regular season, they're healthy. Whether or not they will play in any preseason games is yet to be determined. And I think, that the Vikings don't want to rush them into that. I don't think they want to really push them into that scenario, but given what we're looking at right now ahead of the ahead of the regular season with this offensive line, I think we're looking in the best shape possible, and one of the best shapes the Vikings have ever seen at offensive line. So let me know what you think about the updates here today. A lot of news is coming. Just want to touch on a few things here today before we jump into some more stuff tomorrow, where teams have officially got back to practice today. So we're going to be breaking everything down some more as it comes out through today. But it's all I got in this video. If you did enjoy, give it a like, hit the sub button as well. I'm signing out though. Thank you for watching. Hope you have a great day. See you later.